I think we're live.
Yeah, we've been on live, but I don't see it anywhere else. Making sure that it is shared. Yeah, I see it now. I think it's going to be a very fruitful discussion, so let's just wait for some individuals to join us, a significant number, so that we can have
I think we can talk about a few things before we get into one of the things I was going to recommend is perhaps we can do partially in English and partially in Afaan Oromoo. Often I do see in our comment in the site like Afaan Oromoo, Afaan Oromoo, so I think we have two type of audience. I think we should cover that.
Gaariidha. Baga ayyaana irreechaadhaan si ga'ee nu hundi keenya iyyuu baga ayyaana irreechaa akkuma argitu aadaa bareedaa calaqqisuu bakkuma halleetti magaalaa adda addaatti irreechaan ayyaaneffamaa argaa jirra. Warri horaa diisiidha dhaquu hafneesi warra bishooftuus warra finfinnees hafnee fi at least karaa social media wanta kanarraa qoda fudhanneerraa baay'ee waan nama gammachiisu waan adda addaa waan aadaa keenya bareedaa isa mul'isu kan ijoolleen keenya babbareeddee achitti gaditti baatu ijoolleen illee warri diaspora asitti dhalatee guddattee aadaa ishee cimsitee aadaa ishee jabeessattee abbee ishee haadha ishee caalaa ayyaaneffachaa akka jirtu argineerra baay'ee bareedaa waggaa waggaadhaan argina akka irreechaan yeroo natti tolu badaa yeroo ayyaana biyya lafaa keessa ayyaana natti tolu keessa irreechi ayyaana tokkodha. Isaan gafaatu jechuun hin danda'a. Akkam ture irreechaan siif seena kan namarraa jalqabname amma namoonni seenanitti.
Yeah, I think warra seenaa bahaa jiranii fi waa sadii irratti haasa'uuf deemna. UN Human Rights Councilini resolution dabarsee jira irra mari'achuuf deemna. Kun ammoo haaluma sanii walitti hidhatee sagantaa kalee ta'e illee irratti odeessinaa garuu san duratti kaati jettee fi ati akka tasaa taatee hora DC haftee turte. Ani akka tasaa ta'eetiin New York waan turee fi hora DC irratti hirmaadheen ture. Baay'ee roobaa ture. I think it was a gloomy hurricane itti waan turee fi hurricane sun affect godhe.
Caamsitu nana ture ana tafe. Nan caamsan ture.
Hafiisa gangeeti.
Tafe fi caamuu didde. Anyways, akkuma ati jettee waan sadii irratti haasofna. Tokko waa'ee akkuma ati jettee UN Human Rights Commission resolution baasee irratti haasofna. Lammaffaa waa'ee engadda konfiraansii gaarii tokkotu deemame innis akka workshop konfiraansiin akka panel discussion tokko United Women of the Horn kan jedhu peace building in Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa kan jedhurra isarrattis waa xinnoo haasofna. Umarratti irreechaa wajjin wal qabatee waanuma xinnoo tokko jennee waan sadii kana ergii isin wajjin qoonnee boona afaan Ingiliffaa fi Oromoofaatiin goona. So of kolcha amma dhumaatti wajjin akka turtanii abdii keenyadha. Akkuma beektanii anaaf seenaan xinnoo bannee turre garuu seenaa beektu no introduction needed. Executive Director of Oromo Legacy Leadership and Advocacy Association ani mootishoodha. Turtii gaariin wajjin qabaadha innis naaf feerra. Galatooma.
Galatoomii teessoo anis akkuma kan keeti actually hanga kan keetisoo baduu baadhee jedhee this is I don't know but I think when we it's been a very long time.
Wednesday kanaan jedhe malee Wednesday ganama programma qabna turre isarraa banne malee ati baddeen banne.
Yeah, it's a conclude gonika. It's a 2021 December.
2021
as we go into 2022, maybe we ratti mari'annee jenna what program haarawaa maal qabannee dhufnaa kan jedhu irratti I think irratti mari'annee jenna dhaggeeffattoonni keenyallee yaada nuuf kennuu danda'anii akkuma ati jette I think amma emergency hatattamaa wanti wal geenye jennee fi UN Council Human Rights irratti resolution dabarsee I think ati afaan Ingiliffaatiin the first half goonee afaan Oromootti itti aayidaan immoo akkam jetta?
First half Ingiliffaan wayyaa.
I think let's do that.
Oromoo tokko qofatu hin ta'ini warri wanta kana keessa qora qabaatanis yoo dhaggeeffatanii gaarii gatii ta'ee fi
Absolutely.
let's do the first part in English and then we will do the rest with Afaan Oromoo in the mix. So
And mix.
yeah,
We're not expert, but actually, I think since we do have a diverse audience, I think let's get started. Shall I start it, or you want to go ahead and take the?
Yeah. I'll start it, Sena. I'll start it. I'll just start by asking you. Just give us an overview of what this resolution looks like and where it started, and just a general overview for those audience that probably did not follow this resolution specifically. I know it's not almost all our audience probably are familiar with this, but just give us a brief summary of where it came from and where it's going.
I think we're talking about the resolution that just passed. I wanted to. Our operator is a little bit slow, but let me just leave that out. I was gonna show the resolution that just passed, and lots of, if not all, African country opposed it, but nevertheless it was adopted. It was so just to give you background, in December 17, 2021, UN Human Rights Council passed a resolution that demanded investigation across Ethiopia. The mandate goes across Ethiopia, even though the focus has remained on the northern part of the conflict. But the conflict in Ethiopia is all part of Ethiopia, especially, obviously, in the Tigray and Oromia region being the center of it. So this resolution was adopted last year, but eventually, earlier this year, the Commission was able to conduct investigation in northern part of the country, and then they came up with their finding about 3 weeks ago. I was in Geneva. In that finding, basically, there was a credible evidence and to why they need to investigate Oromia, but also they list out types of human rights violation in terms of crime against humanity, ethnic cleansing. It's anything you can possibly call short of genocide being the last thing. They have listed in that investigation, and they make recommendation. And then one of the recommendations, obviously, have I believe about 5 recommendations on the bottom. If you look at what the leaders are, the kind of hateful language they used, there's just so much gruesome atrocity that took place over the last 2 years since the war started in the northern part of Ethiopia. And I think as an Oromo, this is very common. So today what happened is the Security Council again adopted to renew the investigation for 1 more year. So as an Oromo, obviously Allah and someone that have been working on this as a team, you know what this means. We can't wait. This is the news that they cannot wait another hour, another day to kind of come here, because Allah have been pushing very hard for the mandate to include, for the investigation to include Oromia. And we were really pleased to see the commission did include a language and this month's application. They have credible evidence to why they need to investigate. So the mandate being renewed right now means that Oromia and other parts of Ethiopia, not just Oromia, because atrocity did not just take place in Oromia, it expands to Benishangul and other parts of the country. It is absolutely important for the commission to expand their mandate, and then and I'm happy to see, obviously, that lots of countries agree with it, especially with the reviving, with the breakdown of the truth, and that the mandate should be renewed, investigation should continue, and this second phase of this investigation will reveal even further devastation, not just containing to the northern part of the conflict, but across it. So we're kind of, as an Oromo, one thing we have been so desperate we've been looking for was the justice. And if you remember, from the moment Hachalu was assassinated, 20 U.S. member of Congress wrote a letter to the then Secretary of State, which is Mike Pompeo, for independent investigation into the killing of Hachalu. But obviously, the UN mandate starts from November 4th, 2020. 5 months later. So nevertheless, it is still so much gruesome atrocities have taken place in Oromia. So now is the chance for the Oromo people, for the Oromo community, of course, certainly as in the center, to make sure this investigation, these investigators do get credible information, credible data to kind of really go ahead and investigate and bring out the atrocity that we saw for so long. I mean, we have promised our people to push for independent investigation to be into Oromo. And so obviously you see the UN government have responded. It's very interesting. So
before we go into the response from the Ethiopian government, there's two things that I want you to clarify for the audience. The first one is, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but this is something, we especially Ola desperately wants the audience to know is, you just said that Ola has been working very hard to push for this independent investigation and other items. What are the specific things? You don't have to give us a list of the laundry list of things, but a couple of things that Ola is doing to, in the advocacy effort to highlight in the need for independent investigation. In the second, you mentioned very likely that you want the participation from the community, from the public, especially the Oromo public, to help in the reporting. What are the specific things that individuals can do to ensure that correct reportings and even reports in general can come out and be submitted to the investigating body or to the International Human Rights Commission, Ethiopian experts on Ethiopia?
I guess I will answer that in two segments, team. And we have in this program both in Afan Oromo as well as in English. So we have an audience who have a hard time understanding English. So lots of the language into what the community, what the Oromo people should do, what this investigation renewal means, and how they can participate. I think that will focus on Afan Oromo. But for the international, because we do know our audience are both Oromos and alike, or I mean others non-Oromos, for them, as one thing I think as an Ola that we can say about is for a long time, I think, it's evidence that we work very closely with the member of the US government, as well as the Congress and EU, Australian Parliament. And we haven't worked with the Canada, but in the Western Hemisphere, we work very, very closely with this government officials that we're very pleased to see they supported this resolution. We believe it's the right thing, and the resolution must be renewed because the previous time they had was not sufficient to produce the depth of the resolution, because the depth of information, because the resolution and the mandate says across the country, but the investigation only related to the northern part of that. And keep in mind, these commissions were also supposed to make a recommendation on transitional justice. It will be incomplete to recommend a solution, transitional justice, without even looking into what had happened in Oromia, home to over 60% of the population. Over 60, Oromos account nearly over that, plus the other ethnic group that are living there. So I say, so to make a recommendation where the persistence and the long human rights violation have taken there, and without really looking into to make that such a recommendation, would have been incomplete and would have been definitely showed as a bias or maybe even one-sided, because one of our problems is why is it that the international community continue to ignore the atrocity that's happening in the southern part of the country? And now, is the West favored? Is the West favor into?
Yeah, I don't want to cut you, but this is a very important. I don't want you to go over very quickly. I understand that when the Human Rights Commission went to Ethiopia to do the investigation, they were only allowed to look around Finfinne, and they're not allowed, Addis Ababa, the capital, they're not allowed to go to peripheries. Is that one of the reasons why they're not looking elsewhere, or is there a specific reason? Do you have any guess why they are very reluctant, or that they need a push for them to investigate the atrocities that are happening in Oromia, because those are very glaring human rights violations that are happening? If you have any guess.
Yes, guess and evidence-based information too. Yes, I mean, first and foremost, the UN, the commission that was appointed last year, they did not investigate Oromia or outside of Finfinne, outside of the capital. It's not because they couldn't. It was just, it was just politically not interest to them. That's just the matter. And if you look at that, the international community have remained to focus on the northern. I've always look at the USA, you know what I'm saying? They almost brag about, we gave this for Amhara, we gave 7 million for Amhara education, we gave 8 million for this, Afar and this, but they don't even want to mention what's happening in Oromia when they are nearly, we are estimating, we are based on credible evidence, because just in one zone, we have 500,000 people on the verge of starvation to death in Oromia. And this is the conversation we have talked with the USAID, and USAID and other WFP, other organizations have intentionally ignored. So southern part of Ethiopia have always been ignored by the West. And then what I meant is that this commission came in to investigate and to make recommendation, and transitional justice would be unfair and just, and actually would not have produced anything if the investigation have not included Oromia. So it is good now moving forward, the next phase of the investigation will include, but why is it that they're not doing it? It's not because they cannot. Of course, the Ethiopian government, as you can see, we're going to discuss next, that they're not going to allow them to investigate any part of it. They have not allowed them to investigate in Tigray. They're not going to allow them to investigate, certainly not in Oromia, but UN still continue. They have, there's a system. They have online system. That's how they persecute al-Bashir, if you remember. That's how they persecute in Syria. They didn't physically go there. They didn't get a permission, but yet they have came up and they labeled these leaders, these regimes, for committing the crimes they committed. But when it comes to Oromia, when it comes to the southern part of Ethiopia, it is obvious, very very clear, the West have interest, or the West have their favorite. I'm honest with you. It is obvious. Okay. So the West have focused in the northern part of Ethiopia, but this it's not because they couldn't do it. It is, but I'm obviously Allah is very pleased. As we've been working very very closely on this one, that this investigation, this mandate have been renewed. The funding is in there, and so it's really good. But we want to emphasize that the Oromo community in the south, the largest southern Ethiopians continue to be disappointed, and the kind of focus is the West continue to give on one side while ignoring on that side. In the case of famine, hunger, that's going on. Obviously, our government bearing the biggest weight, but nevertheless, the West also seem to have it. So I think when it comes to this, I just want, again, we have to keep in mind, we have two types of audience. This conversation we're going to have, it's not because we're going to have two type of conversation, what we're saying in Fana versus English, but the reality is we have non-Oromo, including government officials, who listen to this discussion. So we want to be as clear our disappointment, our dismay for the continued ignorance of the southern part of the conflict, the southern part of humanitarian need that is not getting any kind of attention, whereas they almost like organizations just are kind of plugging, they're focusing in education, we're building a situation where people are on the verge of dying. It's a double standard.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing that I want you to comment on what the people can do. You can do it in Afan Oromo.
We'll do separate. Yeah,
you want to do it at the end?
Yes, it's separate. Okay. I think let's come to this conversation, and then I think we will.
Okay, good. So it's just the Ethiopian government has responded to this resolution by saying that we've already conducted our investigation. We already put out our findings. The Human Rights Commission of Ethiopia has already done the work. There's nothing to see. We've already shown everything that's going on. We already admitted to some of the things that have happened across the board. There's no need for any further investigation. Of course, one of the everybody knows, it's not really that credible to somebody to investigate themselves and report. And then also, investigating is not it's not going to be credible if you investigate yourself while you're still committing the crime, ongoing. So it makes it very tricky to say that you have investigated. And when the entire international community knows that the alleged or the crimes that has been committed, it's not alleged now, it's a public secret now. It's for sure that everybody knows, this is a public knowledge, that horrendous crimes have been committed in all areas of Ethiopia, including the north and Tigray and also Oromia. and the government is complicit with, and sometimes the active actor of the violations, is no secret. But they're pushing back on this commission, saying, no. First, there's nothing to see. Second, whatever is there to see, we already saw. Third, we're capable of doing this on our own. We don't want any external body to come and do it. That's their, in my understanding, that's their major pushback. What do you think? Give me your opinion on the response of the Ethiopian government, and would this response or pushback would further reveal that, you know, if you're hiding something, it's obvious that, you know, it makes it more obvious there's something really going on there. It's something very horrendous that they don't want nobody to see. We know this because not only their pushback, that they have blocked out entire regions all over the country. Telephones and all communications is being cut. So give us, you know, you were in Geneva a few days ago. Thank you for putting up that response from the Ethiopian government. For those of you who are not familiar with the response that they gave, I just kind of summarized the response. Is there a talk around this topic? What are people saying? If there's nothing people are saying, can you give us your own take on this kind of pushback the Ethiopian government is trying to use as a defense mechanism? Do I make sense?
Yes, I think you know, it's you do. I think kind of you kind of covered a larger area. So let me come back. So first, I'll make a comment on the Ethiopian government. This is the state's permanent mission of Ethiopia in Geneva, basically a response to the mandate that just passed. But I was just notified actually by our team that China had introduced earlier an oral amendment on the floor to strike down the commission renewal, and thank God it was struck down. That is really important because this is, you know, I think there was a quote that I read that democracy is just one generation away, you know, to kind of, you know, being taken back. I think it's high time. It is important. I think the Ethiopian government is obviously. If we can read, let me see if I can open up the one of this. Is just see if we can read T. So this one says that Ethiopia reject resolution AHRC 51L19. It is fitting to recall what Ethiopia has been doing to ensure accountability and gauge whether this resolution was warranted. The Ministry of Justice dispatched a team of prosecutors to locality where serious human rights violations have alleged. The Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, on its own initiation, undertook and published independent investigation in allegation of human rights. The government of Ethiopia facilitated a joint independent investigation by the Office of High Commission for Human Rights and Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. But so it goes on and to talk about this, and I can just let me stop and then come back to you and tell you. What's very actually what struck me was let's see, point number 5 say that currently the task force is also finalizing draft of national plan for transitional justice. You know, it's just mind-boggling. And then if you go to like the second page, and it's like,
oh, don't yeah, that's even worse. Go ahead, the second page.
But it's like basically they rejected the the renewal of. Let me come back and I'll share my screen. Okay, so T, what it is it's very unfortunate to see that. It's not unexpected, but it's unfortunate to see the government continue to reject the independent investigation. I think it would have been better for the people of Ethiopia, for the government of Ethiopia to accept the independent investigation and work with the UN to facilitate this investigation. As a country, the people of Ethiopia are really really desperate for peace. To move forward, but it is mind-boggling to me as an Oromo, where the atrocity took place, and that continued to be ignored, and then the investigation will take place. Transitional justice supports Ethiopian government is conducting or in the process of starting a transitional justice, really. So, I mean, it's so obvious that Ethiopian government and the Oromia regional government continue to collaboratively undermine the atrocity instead of putting spotlight on the atrocity that's happening in Roma, and they continue to downplay it. And I hope the international community will see this, and it would then come with the next round of investigation. We'll have a chance truly to investigate atrocity across Ethiopia, not just in Oromia or Tigray. To be honest with you, in many parts of Ethiopia, as Ethiopian, we want to move forward. We want to heal. Nobody's saying let's go kill somebody. They killed us, but it's justice. There cannot be justice when one group get justice and the other group get ignored. That will create envious. That will be a recipe for another violence, because the West continue to pay attention to all the atrocity that happened in the North. Where there's hunger that happened in the North, the West come and give aid where it comes in the South. So I thought it was good. I think overall, I'm not surprised. When the when the finding came out a couple of weeks ago, they completely rejected it. So I didn't expect that they're going to accept this one, but it would have been better for the Ethiopian people and Ethiopian government to accept this investigation and work with the UN to get to the bottom of this and work about how can we move. So it means, for the international community, we really need to look into what's happening. If not, what Abiy is trying to do, what the Prime Minister did and continue to do is, and the Oromia regional government, is that the conflict is just between this bad apple or the so-called TPLF people, where the rest of the country is at peace. But the truth is the rest of the country is not at peace. Thousands of people have been killed, both by armed group as well as the government. The equivalency is not fair, so I'm not in any way equating the same situation. But nevertheless, what I'm trying to say is it's important the international community adapted this and a response. It's very, I don't know, I don't want to say it's funny or hilarious or anything like that, but it's disappointing. I think I'll say that in terms of that, and then we can
yeah, I just want to add, Sena, I just want to add, in my opinion, we all remember the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission. They published this report saying that we've investigated, and of course their findings were nothing new. What everybody knew, there are atrocities committed on both sides. Now, I think the main reason they released that statement is to, in my opinion, and this is a very critical point. And
but Tito, China just introduced a resolution to strike, that got struck down. Though it's not just the Ethiopian government. You have to understand there is a lot of.
No, I understand, but the reason the reason why Ethiopian.
In addition to Ethiopia, Tito, we have to look into how these non-democratic leaders or dictators literally are kind of ganging together and to continue to undermine the human rights situation in different parts of Africa.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. I'm getting to the reason why they started doing that with the Human Rights Commission a while back is to, as you can see in their response, they said they're going to bring some individuals to justice.
Yes, that's what I know.
What they're trying to do is they're trying to blame some individuals for the atrocities that are being committed in Ethiopia. But what we know for sure is the crimes that are being committed, and they are still being committed, and they have been committed, and they will be committed, is a very systematic, systematic and organized crime that's been happening. What Ethiopian government is trying to cover, what other dictatorial regimes around the world are trying to cover, are those systematic, organized crimes that has been happening, coordinated, premeditated crimes that are happening.